been with MapsPeople, I'm sure you've seen the product change, and you mentioned that earlier. I can only imagine, I've seen, just from my own US team, that we get a lot of user feedback, and I'm sure you hear about it too. So I'm wondering how that plays a role in shaping where the product has gone already and the product's future direction.
Yeah, it plays a huge role, right? We are building for an audience, of course, and that's our partners. And every time we get feedback, we try to listen to what the problem is, what is it that they really need, and build for that solution. And then when we build a feature out, we involve them, we beta test things with our partners to make sure that we've solved it in the right way. And one of those ways is, for example, 3D maps that we've been working on for quite a long time and released earlier this year. And it's something that some of our key partners have taken to heart really quickly and constantly push us on, new things they want to do. And they're miles ahead of us sometimes in terms of features that they would really like to see, because that would enable a lot of things or take some development away from their hands and something that we could handle. And that's something that we, are then trying to plan for and see, okay, what makes sense? What could we do? What makes sense for all the kinds of partners that we have across different industries, and not just solving one thing for one partner. We want to solve things that the entire platform audience can need. So that's really the mindset that we have, is that we're building a platform, we're building scalable features, and we try to avoid customization and one-off stuff, because that doesn't bring value for everyone, right?
Speaking of the future, can you offer a glimpse into any exciting upcoming developments or milestones for the product?
Yeah, definitely. So besides 3D, because that's something that we invest a lot in, that's really going to get an overhaul here at the end of the year. So we're going to see maps that just look amazing compared to what's been possible before, because of our close partnerships with the map platforms that kind of work behind the scenes. So that's one key thing. Another thing is labels that we're working hard on. And it sounds, really elementary to work on a label. And what does that really mean? So it's every time we have a location or something on the map where we need to write the location's name or something else, we usually had that as a component that our partners had to customize and had to change how things should look. But we also heard from our partners that this is something that's really hard, and we can see from the end solutions that it's sometimes an oversight. And sometimes something that hasn't been prioritized kind of makes the map experience subpar in some cases. So what we're doing is that we're introducing 3 new types of labels where you can style, you can change, you can edit the size, you can change the color, you can add a halo around a label, all from the CMS. So you don't need to code anything, right? That's really what we're trying to do, make some of these features more accessible. And you can change these things in real time without having to update your app. You'll also be able to add like a background image, so kind of like a call out behind the label if you really want to highlight something. And we're introducing something called flat labels. And flat labels is labels that you can lay on the ground, so they're kind of flat instead of images. And you can make those really dynamic too. So it could be anything from, for example, an event that want to have a booth name. You can write that on the booth so it makes sense and it don't overlap. Or if you have a grocery store, you could write on the aisle what's available for things there, right? So really making the maps much more understandable and, again, visually pleasing. And I think one of the things that this is really, why this is really important, and some of the features that we've been building is really important for the future, is what we call tileless maps. So tiles is like a fundamental technology that maps have been built on for many, many years. And it's the underlying bitmap images that you can see on a map. But with today's more modern phones and computers, we are able to move into vector. So everything is like vector SVG graphics. And that means that it looks good in any resolution, and that it doesn't take that much bandwidth to download a map and work with a map. And a map can be much more dynamic. It's hard to change things in a vector or in a bitmap drawing where you need to remove things. Then you need to remove it at all zoom levels, and it's really cumbersome to do. So what you'll be able to do in tileless maps is really alter the entire experience of what you want to show, what you want to edit, to who. And I really think that tileless maps is the future, and that's where we're going next year. So we'll be able to do apps for both 2D and 3D that scales much better and that looks amazing on every zoom level, and that you can dynamically change based on the use case you have or the situation that the user is in, or the context.
That sounds awesome.
I think some of the things that sometimes are taken for granted when we look at partners, the simple features like wayfinding and search and underlying features on the platform that you can actually leverage. If you take a feature like search, it's usually much more complicated than it sounds. There's a huge difference from what you can find on Google search than what you can find on Yahoo search back in the day, right? There was a reason why Google kind of won the search war back in the day, because they were able to present you with a relevant answer really, really quickly. And that relevance is also really important when you're in a physical space. So when you're at a stadium or you're at a corporate office and you're searching for something specific, you're usually searching for something that's around you, right? In the building you are, maybe on the floor. So we use a lot of that logic on distance to filter and present search results in a way that makes it possible for the user to find what they're looking for really, really quickly. So that kind of search algorithm is actually something we've developed over many years and fine-tuned to make sure that people can find what they need really fast and they can get there. And getting there with wayfinding is also something that can be taken for granted sometimes, right? Because wayfinding is not just wayfinding. There can be many things on a floor plan today, like obstacles. So it could be tables that have been moved around, a wall that's come up so you can no longer walk through a specific passage, right? If you don't update these things, then wayfinding will become unusable. So we developed something called AutoRoute that looks at what's walkable pathways within a building and automatically change the routing network based on obstacles on a floor plan. So if you move a table around, you'll suddenly be guided around it, right? Or if you put up a barricade, then you can't go that way, you need to go somewhere else. So that's also a way to control these things. You can even control it for what user role has access to pass through certain areas, right? So if you're a visitor at an office or at a stadium with a specific ticket, you'll be guided through the right places where you can actually access and not just shown, every part of the map. The same thing goes with accessibility, right? Really important to us that everyone can find what they need and get there safely. So if you enable our accessibility features, you'll be guided away from stairs and towards elevators and ramps, making sure that every part of the building is accessible for everyone. I should mention like a feature that really enables a lot of amazing experiences right now for those who harness it the right way and use it the right way. It's display rules. Everything within Maps and Doors is locations, right? From a table to a room, and the way that those are displayed are either just a dot or a square on the map, and then we can render it in different ways. And those display rules are a list of 30 different options that can be set on a specific type. So we can choose that, for example, a workstation, as an example, is rendered with a label, an icon. You can see it on specific zoom levels. On other zoom levels, it's hidden. There might be a 2D model representing it, so an image of a table. It could also be a 3D model with a specific rotation. So you can kind of set the state on these different things. You can choose how this should look. And when you set it for a specific type, as we have with one of our customers, then it just looks the same on all the locations, right? So they have 700 chairs in a building, 700 workstations, and they're all styled the same way. And if they go in and make one change to the type, it's just automatically updated everywhere. And they can use these display rules when they have it in their app to go out and say, well, if someone is sitting at the table, I want to render a 3D model of a person sitting in that chair on that table. And it creates a completely different way of visualizing like the heartbeat of the office, what's going on, and makes people much more interested in going in and, looking at, what's the office like today, who's sitting where. One of the big issues a lot of companies have today, and something that a lot of our partners are trying to solve within kind of corporate office, is getting people back to the office. And this is one of the ways. This is making the workplace more vibrant, more interesting, making people interested in what's actually going on, and also allow people who are at home to kind of follow along on, what's happening at the office and making them interested in coming back. Some partners we have today, automatically assign seats to you. So you don't really know where you're sitting when you come in. So having that kind of experience where you can see who's sitting where, how can I engage with my friends, how can I find them in a big building where you're not used to sitting is really helpful. And that's something that drives a lot of user adoption for a lot of our partners too.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Great moment.
Right. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.